Hello, welcome to American Baker in Germany. I'm Michelle, and this is Natalie. Say hi, Natalie. Hi. Yeah. So Natalie's not in many of our videos, but she is a very important part of our family, and because she's a little young to be helping. But I wanted to introduce her today because we are making her birthday cake. Natalie's birthday. And how old are you going to be? Natty, can you say 2?
2.
Good. Yeah. And we're very excited about it, aren't we? Yeah. Are you going to have a party? And what kind of cake are we going to make? What kind of cake are we going to make? Minnie Mouse?
Really?
And Daisy Duck?
Yeah.
Yeah? And what else is going to be on the cake? Bows?
No.
Bows, yeah. So we're very excited today, so let's get started.
I wanted to make the 2 characters for the cake, so I opened one of my daughter's books and chose a page where the 2 faces are about the same size. I laid a piece of parchment paper over the picture and traced around it with a marker. You can use an edible marker if you want, but I knew mine wouldn't really come in contact with the food, so I used a normal marker. You can also use a pencil, but beware that a ballpoint pen doesn't write on parchment paper. I traced the faces 3 times each. The only purple color I had was very dark, so I mixed it with white fondant to make a lavender color. I compared the color to the book to color match and discovered that mine was still too light, so I added more dark purple to darken it. The fondant was a bit soft and sticky, so I used a bit of powdered sugar. This time the color was closer. I rolled it out and cut out a circle of lavender. This will act as the background for Daisy's face. I did the same thing in pale pink to act as the background for Minnie's face. I took half of the lavender and darkened it again. Then I cut out all the tracings. I started with Daisy. First, I cut out the bow. I laid the paper bow on the fondant and cut the bow out of purple fondant. I also rolled out all of my fondant using my thickest spacing bands to make sure everything I cut out was the same thickness. Next, I cut out Daisy's face and ponytail. I mixed yellow and orange fondant together to get the color of Daisy's beak. I cut out her beak next. Then, removing the spacing bands, I rolled out some dark pink fondant really thin and cut out the inside of Daisy's mouth. Then I rolled some pale pink fondant really thin and cut out Daisy's tongue. Next, I mixed white fondant with a tiny bit of blue to make a very pale blue color. I used the back of several piping tips to form Daisy's eyes. Then I cut out a crescent of lavender to make her eyelids, trimming them to size. Then I made a few thin strips of black to make her eyelashes and pupils. I placed Daisy's face on the background before placing the eyelashes on the second eye because otherwise they're kind of out into nothing. We needed the background to stabilize them. I had a hard time placing the eyelashes, so I used my tweezers, but even then I dropped them several times. Finally, I mixed a tiny bit of black food coloring with clear alcohol to make the palest gray. I painted it on with my smallest paintbrush that I only use for baking to create the shading on her face and bow. I was really happy with Daisy. As a final detail, I added a tiny ball of white fondant to be catch lights in Daisy's eyes. Then I got to work on Minnie's face. I started with her bow once again, but Minnie's bow always has polka dots, so I rolled out some dark pink fondant fairly thick. I cut out white dots out of a tiny bit of white fondant using a round piping tip to make the dots all the same size. I pushed them onto the pink fondant and rolled them out a bit thinner to press them into the fondant. Then I cut around the cutout of the bow. The black pieces of Minnie's face were in tiny pieces all over. I cut them each out individually. Since the pieces were so light and small, they didn't stick to the fondant very well. I used edible glue to stick them onto it and cut around it. Then I used flesh-colored fondant to form Minnie's face. I didn't want to place her nose before she had a mouth, so I first rolled out red fondant really thin and cut out Minnie's mouth. Then dark pink for her tongue. Then I placed her nose. I cut out her eyes using the back of a piping tip to form ovals out of the white fondant. I made her pupils out of black fondant using a round piping tip. Minnie's eyelashes are a touch thinner than Daisy's, so I made them by rolling out black fondant into really thin snakes. I added catch lights to Minnie's eyes, and I painted on some shading just like Daisy. I thought she turned out really cute, and it shows you that it's possible to make characters without being a perfect artist. As long as you can trace and cut, you can make this too. Then I made bows to go on the cake. I won't be using all of these bows, but I wanted to have a variety to choose from. I made bows first out of the darker lavender using my bow cutters. I didn't need the tails of the bow, so I didn't use them at all. I only used the bow itself. I put tissue in the loops of the bow to hold them up and to let them dry like that. Once I made one of all of my bow cutters, I made a bow freehand. They're not that hard to make. First, you roll out some fondant into a strip and cut it into a long rectangle. Then you pinch the middle together, trying to create some folds while you're doing it. Then you pinch both ends the same way and fold them over into the middle, pressing them together so they stick. Then you cut a small thin rectangle and lay it over the middle of the bow. And there you have it. I do the exact same thing with dark pink. May I just note that it's easier to put the tissue in while folding the loops over instead of trying to press it in after it's been folded. If you like what we do here, consider subscribing for a new video every Monday, as well as regular bonus videos with recipes and other tutorials. I left these lovely bows and characters to dry for a couple days. Unfortunately, 2-year-olds will get into everything even when you think you've put it away where they can't get to it. My daughter found Minnie, and I had to pry it out of her hands in 3 pieces. I felt absolutely sick to my stomach. I had spent over 2 hours making the characters and bows. Daisy also didn't come out unscathed, but she was in a lot better shape than Minnie. I thought I wasn't going to be able to use it at all. But then I decided to press her back into shape, and although worse for wear, she looked okay. After some serious debate, I decided to use it anyway. However, I knew I would need some more decorations to cover up Minnie's tears and to decorate with. I rolled out some white fondant and cut out some daisies. I stacked the cake on a cake board. My daughter loves peanut butter, so this is peanut butter cake and Swiss meringue buttercream with peanut butter folded into it. The party is kept pretty small, so I only made a 6-inch cake. I filled and crumb-coated the cake with peanut butter buttercream. I cleaned up my cake board with a damp rag and chilled it in the fridge to let the buttercream set up. While the cake was chilling, I cut out some small white circles, which will be polka dots on the cake. Then I frosted the cake once more with more buttercream. This buttercream is quite soft, but it still sets up really well when chilled. I cleaned up the cake board again and chilled the cake once more. I had some light pink fondant, but it wasn't enough to cover the cake, so I mixed it with white fondant and added some pink food coloring to get just the color I wanted. Then I rolled it out and covered the cake with it. I smoothed it with my fondant smoother and my hands and cut off the excess with a sharp knife. To create a border at the bottom of the cake, I rolled out a snake of black fondant and a snake of pink fondant. Stuck them together with edible glue and rolled them into a twist. Then I wrapped it around the bottom of the cake. There was a small gap, but I wasn't concerned because I knew the decorations would cover them. Next, I placed my mangled characters, Daisy Duck and Minnie Mouse, on top of the cake. Then I cut out my daughter's name and age out of dark pink fondant and placed them on the side of the cake, starting in the middle to allow me to center the name. I hide the worst tears in Minnie's face using white daisies. I also use some of the bows to hide the tears as well. Then I place some more bows around the cake. Finally, I place polka dots at fairly regular intervals around the cake. I really loved how it turned out. Ironically, almost no one noticed the daisies hiding Minnie's face. Most even thought the bows in the front were deliberately placed and didn't realize they were hiding imperfections. So although Minnie was a bit shy, I think this cake turned out really beautiful and is exactly what I wanted to give my daughter for her 2nd birthday. Happy birthday, Natalie! For more cakes and tutorials, visit my website, AmericanBakerInGermany.com. We're also on Facebook and Instagram. Don't forget to subscribe.
Yeah? See?
Baby.
It didn't take that long, did it? Who's that?
Baby.
Yeah?
Hi.
Natalie, can you say, look, it's me?
Me.
Yeah. Can you say Natalie?
Baby.
Baby.
No.
Bow, yeah, you like bows, don't you? Who is that in your hand?
Hand.
Who is that? Who's this?
Dice.
Who is it?
Dice.
Belly, yeah, her belly, yeah. Who is that, honey? Minnie?
Dice.
Can you say Minnie Mouse?
Minnie.
Minnie, yeah. Can you give her kisses? Aww. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.